Alrighty, thank you, Hillary. And I want to thank everyone for inviting me out here today. For the last 80 years, our government's Reefer Madness campaign has tried to brainwash society and convince us that marijuana has absolutely no redeeming qualities. They have wasted hundreds of billions of dollars arresting millions of people for marijuana, while also actively stifling research and preventing patients from receiving a safe, effective, natural, and inexpensive medicine. Fortunately, despite our government's best efforts, more and more people are realizing the truth. Maine and 15 other states now have compassionate medical marijuana laws, so give yourself a round of applause. Way to go, Maine. Woo! So, we're in on the secret. We know the truth, and it is up to us to educate ourselves and others about this great plan. I don't want to be preaching to the choir. I want to preach to the preachers. If we're going to reverse the effects of Reefer Madness, we all need to become cannabis ambassadors and let other people know about the beneficial aspects of cannabis hemp, as well as the devastating effects its prohibition has on society. That's where the cannabis curriculum comes in. Take any field of study you can think of, and you can apply it to cannabis hemp or its prohibition. For students in school, the next time your teacher gives you the chance to choose a topic for a term paper or a project, pick something related to medical marijuana, industrial hemp, or the drug war. When you do this, you're educating yourself, you educate your classmates and your professors, and you can even tell your parents about this so they'll learn about it. I'm also asking students to send me the results of their efforts so that I can add that to the Cannabis Curriculum Clearinghouse, which is going to be a huge online database that people can use to benefit their research. If you're not in school, but are merely a student of life, you can still utilize the cannabis curriculum as we work together to end prohibition. Cannabis has been used as a safe and effective medicine by almost every civilization on Earth. Over 4,000 years ago, the Chinese used cannabis tea to treat rheumatism, gout, and malaria. A few years ago, they discovered a mummified body in the Gobi Desert, 2,700-year-old body. It was buried with 2 pounds of cannabis, which is amazing. That shows how valuable it was to that culture. They're not sure if that cannabis was for medical reasons or religious purposes, but that would be a good research project to find out. We know that cannabis spread from China throughout Asia, Africa, and Europe, but we need more research into how cannabis was used by all the different societies and cultures as it became more widespread all around the planet. In the 1700s, a British pharmacopoeia noted that cannabis root and hemp seed oil was very helpful for treating skin ailments. And in the 1830s, an Irish doctor, William O'Shaughnessy, he was practicing in India. And he noted in India, they were using cannabis for all sorts of things, as a sedative, as a pain reliever, as an antispasmodic, and an anticonvulsant. So O'Shaughnessy documented all this information, took it back to England, and introduced it to Western medicine, where it became wildly popular. In fact, by 1900, there were over 1,000 medicines with cannabis in it. Most of these were in the tincture form. So it was very, very popular. Even Queen Victoria was prescribed cannabis. So just over 100 years ago, the Queen of England was using cannabis, if you can imagine that. The use of cannabis as a medicine declined in the early 1900s, and we need to understand why. One reason could be the fact that of other recently developed drugs like opiates and aspirin, and another reason could have been the difficulty they had measuring the strength of these cannabis medicines, because they didn't even know what THC was back then. It hadn't even been discovered yet. So creating a medicine, standardized dosage on a consistent basis was very hard. So the cannabis medicine use went down during that period. Then in the 1930s, Reefer Madness was in full swing, and in 1937, they passed the Marijuana Tax Act, even though doctors from the American Medical Association testified against this. They still railroaded this piece of legislation through Congress. So we need somebody to study that and see how this legislation came into law. And then a few years later, they actually removed the word cannabis from the US pharmacopoeia, which is amazing. They're basically saying that cannabis is not a drug anymore, so they're taking it out of the book. We need someone now to work to put cannabis back in the pharmacopoeia, because that's a very important thing. If we have any political science or public policy people out there, any policy wonks in the crowd, we need to reschedule cannabis. Right now, our government has scheduled cannabis as a Schedule I narcotic, which means it's got a high potential for abuse, no currently accepted medical use, and a lack of safety. We know all three of these things are patently false, and yet cannabis is still classified as a Schedule I narcotic. We need to lobby President Obama to reschedule it, or whoever our next president is. There's a catch-422, as I call it, and this is the roadblocks that our government puts up in our way. They say that there's no research that shows cannabis is a safe and effective medicine, so people say, okay, well, let us do research. And they say, no, you can't do research. And we say, why? They say, well, because it's not safe and effective. So they create this whole circular logic, throw up these roadblocks. We need to understand these, figure out how to get around them. There was an investigational new drug program that started in 1978 where our government actually sends cannabis to American citizens. And these are 2 of the 4 remaining patients alive today. They receive 300 marijuana cigarettes a month from our government. So it's amazing. But they closed this program in 1992. So we need to restart it, or we need to start up a new program so that patients can receive cannabis from the government and we can do a lot more research. If we have any biology or chemistry majors, this is a huge area of research and we need a lot of work in this area. They just sequenced the cannabis genome. And what this means, we have all this data about exactly what the genome of the cannabis plant is made up of. So we need people to decipher and decode all of this information and understand better the different therapeutic properties of cannabis. And as Dr. Dustin Sulak mentioned earlier today, there's the endocannabinoid system, which works with all your brain and a lot of major organs in your body. So we need to do a lot more research in this area to understand how this works. There have been over 85 cannabinoids identified in the cannabis flower. We all know about THC, but there's other ones like CBD, cannabidiol, which is very good for MS and spasms. So we have all these cannabinoids, but we need a lot more research. So if we have any chemistry majors out there, let's start working on that. Dr. John McPartland, another cannabis researcher, calls cannabis a synergistic shotgun because it does so much. It affects so many different symptoms and it is so safe and effective. And there, as Dr. Sulak was mentioning, they're finding out that cannabis is very good for treating or maybe even preventing cancer. It helps bone fractures heal faster. Cannabis is showing a lot of promise in treating Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, which is very important as our society ages. And it helps with so many different other things, head trauma, stroke, glaucoma. So it's very, very effective. And one thing I want to point out, cannabis is very good for post-traumatic stress disorder, which a lot of our veterans have. So we need to work with our veterans and the Veterans Administration to make sure they don't screw with us and keep the rights, because we love our veterans, they sacrifice for us, so we need to help them back. Public health and safety. And again, see, I'm just talking about what Dr. Sulak was talking about, but the delivery systems, we need more research to determine which delivery system works best for which ailment. You've got vaporizers, you can do it in edibles, you can do it in tinctures, you can also do it topically in salves and ointments. So there are all these different delivery systems, but we need more research into which one works better for what ailment. So, you know, let your doctor know what you're doing and how it's helping you so we can add this to the body of research. We also know that cannabis is very, very safe. There's never been a documented lethal overdose of cannabis, which is just amazing. Why is that? We need to understand why that is. Maybe it has to do with the endocannabinoid system in your body protecting itself somehow. But we need to look into that. We also need to look into the fact that a lot of people are using cannabis and reducing the amount of pain medications and other narcotics that they take in, other pharmaceuticals. So it improves their quality of life. So we need to document that. We need to talk to our doctors and each other and, you know, let people know that cannabis is helping us reduce our intake of other pharmaceuticals. A lot of people say that marijuana is a gateway drug, that it will lead you on a slippery slope to addiction. And I agree that marijuana is a gateway drug, but it's proving to be a gateway away from tobacco, a gateway away from alcohol, and a gateway away from narcotics and other debilitating pharmaceuticals. So there's some studies that are proving that, but we need a lot more work in this area. People need to come out of the cannabis closet and admit and tell people that they are getting off of alcohol and other drugs by smoking cannabis. It's very important. And we also know that a lot of people actually self-medicate without even realizing it. They may have anxiety, depression, or ADHD. And then a few puffs of cannabis in the morning, they can go to work, go to school, and just function normally. So we need to really understand that better. The economics of prohibition. This is a huge area. We need to do a lot of study in this. Pharmaceutical companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars each year creating all of these pharmaceuticals that have a laundry list of side effects, while you can grow cannabis in your backyard or your closet very inexpensively. So how much could be saved if people just used cannabis as opposed to all these pharmaceuticals? Or look at the custody industry. They are still arresting patients out there. Even though Maine has medical and a lot of other states do, a lot of patients and a lot of nonviolent drug users are being incarcerated, put on probation, put in jail, prison. We need to calculate the cost of this custody industry so that we can tell people we're wasting all this money. We need to legalize marijuana. We need to legalize medical marijuana and save all this money. We also need to look at the dispensaries. In California and Colorado, the dispensary industry is booming. There's just dispensaries all over the place. What does that mean? It means they're hiring people. That means they're paying taxes. They're helping their local economies. They're bringing this economy, the underground marijuana economy, above ground, so it's becoming legal, but it's also creating a lot of jobs in this really hard economic times. So we need to understand that, and we need to show people how much money could be made through the dispensary model. And here's another catch 422 that our government is throwing these roadblocks up. They recently announced, the IRS, that dispensaries cannot deduct business expenses. Why? Because the business they're conducting is illegal. So it's like the government can make these crazy laws and rules up just to try to stifle the medical marijuana industry, but it's not going to work. We're going to fight back, take them to court, and we're going to prevail. We just have to understand that. We also have to look into the civil rights. Medical marijuana users don't have good civil rights in the workplace. A medical marijuana patient in Michigan, he had his card, he was registered, he failed a drug test, he got fired, he took him to court, and the court ruled with the company. So we need to fight for our rights, and this is something that everybody can do. If you're a medical marijuana patient, we need to make sure we're not discriminated against in the workplace. We also need to look at the asymptotical relationship between usage and impairment. They're trying to put laws on the books where if you have like 1 nanogram per milliliter of THC in your bloodstream, you're impaired. We know that's not true. We need to understand what is true impairment, especially as it relates to using cannabis. So we've been talking a lot about medical marijuana and everything, but no discussion of the cannabis curriculum would be complete, especially we're talking about health and safety, or body health, without talking about the humble hemp seed. The hemp seed is tremendous. It is the new superfood. It's really, really high in omega-6 and omega-3 essential fatty acids, and you hear about essential fatty acids all the time on the news, you know. They're so good for you. Well, hemp is chock full of your omegas. It's also very high in protein, fiber, vitamins, and a lot of essential minerals. So it's just a powerhouse food for you. And so we need to understand, you know, is this the most healthy food on the planet? And one amazing thing about hemp foods is there are no documented allergies to hemp foods. When you think about it, that's really amazing because there's so many people now that are allergic to peanuts, they're lactose intolerant, they can't eat soy products or even wheat products because of the gluten. Hemp is gluten-free too. So there's no known allergies. Why is that? Does that have something to do with the whole endocannabinoid system? I don't know, but we need to understand that better. We need more research in that area. So, even if you can't research hemp food products, or even if you're not in school, one thing everybody can do to help end prohibition is to buy hemp food or hemp products, but especially hemp foods, because when you buy hemp foods, you're making yourself healthier, and you're making the environment healthier, and we're helping to end prohibition, because we want our American farmers to grow hemp. They can't grow hemp in America. It's amazing. It's just totally stupid and asinine. But if we can build up the hemp industry large enough, we can show all the money that we're sending north to Canada or overseas to Europe and China. We want to keep that money here. We want our farmers to grow hemp. So buy hemp foods. And you can get all sorts of great hemp foods all over the place, like at Whole Foods Market. Hannaford's has hemp foods, all your local health food stores, and there's so many great new products out there. There's hemp milk, chocolate hemp milk is awesome, hemp ice cream, hemp protein powder, hemp flour, hemp power bars, hemp oatmeal, hemp nut butter, and they even have shelled hemp seeds. They've come up with a process to take the hard coating off the shell, so you're left with just a little inside the heart, the meat of the hemp seed. It's just tremendously tasty. So they've got all these different foods. So go out there, help to work to end prohibition and get healthy at the same time. You can eat hemp, but guess what? It's great for your skin too. The essential fatty acids and the amino acids in the hemp seed oil act as emollients to moisturize and heal your skin. And as Dr. Sulak was saying, actually he was talking about high THC ointments helping skin psoriasis. This is just hemp seed oil, but it's very good for skin ailments, psoriasis, acne. And they even have a cannabis root product out now that's very good for sore muscles and abrasions. And I want to mention on hemp seed foods, there is no THC in these hemp seed foods, so you cannot fail a drug test just by eating hemp foods. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of great hemp body products, lip balms, soaps, shampoo, and conditioner is really good for your hair. It's tremendous. And Dr. Bronner's, I'm sure everybody knows about Dr. Bronner's. It's been around forever. Well, they use a lot of hemp seed oil in their full line of body care products, and they're very supportive of the hemp industry. So when you buy Dr. Bronner's, you're helping the hemp industry, you're helping the environment, and you're helping yourself get healthy. So go for it. So this is another thing that everybody can do. We can communicate. If you're in school, journalism major, write for your school newspaper, go on your school radio show, talk about these issues. But normal people, regular people, we can all write letters to the editors. We can all call into the talk shows. We need to open the debate. The media will not talk about prohibition because they know they cannot logically win that argument. It's just, there's no logical argument for prohibition. So we need to take the debate to them. We need to call people up. We need to rebut Reefer Madness propaganda. There was just an article recently, a couple days ago, talking about the number of pharmaceuticals, the overdose deaths of pharmaceuticals is huge. It's 2 or 3 times more than the overdose deaths from cocaine and heroin. So legal pharmaceuticals are killing many, many more people than illegal drugs. We need to let people know, of course, that cannabis is much safer than all of those, and so that people should use that. We need to come out of the cannabis closet. It's very difficult for people to do because with the whole stigma against medical marijuana, against marijuana, we have to fight against that stigma, but we still need to come out and talk about it. Talk about it to your friends, talk about it to your doctor, which you can do in confidentiality. And you have to remember, we're talking about prohibition here. So anytime somebody asks you a question like, why can't patients get their medicine? Why can't our farmers grow hemp? Why are our prisons full of non-violent drug users? It's the prohibition, stupid. That's why we have all these problems. So we need to get rid of prohibition, and we need to fight back. Sociology, if we have any sociology majors here, is there going to be a watershed event or a tipping point when society finally has its aha moment and says, oh, dang, prohibition's wrong, it's a cruel, heartless policy, we got to get rid of it? Or is it going to be a billion baby steps where we incrementally move forward as a society, which is probably more likely? Take, for instance, Proposition 19 last year in California to legalize marijuana. That did not pass. However, it was still a huge baby step forward because it raised the debate to a global level. Everybody was talking about it, and we were discussing the issue of prohibition. So that was a huge baby step. We have a lot of states that are passing medical marijuana laws. Those are baby steps forward. We need to keep moving forward. In UMass, a professor at UMass, Lyle Craker, he wanted to get medicinal grade cannabis for research. So he asked the DEA, of course they didn't let him, they stonewalled him for like 7 years, but we still need to keep trying. We need to keep taking the fight to them. And we have to remember that this is a marathon and not a sprint. Reefer Madness has stigmatized society about cannabis. So even if they end prohibition tomorrow, we still have a lot of work to do to build the industry, to do more medical research, and to grow more hemp. So I hope we're in this for the long haul because it is a fight. And I think that's it. Or is there another? Yep. So that was my medical and nutritional cannabis curriculum. I'm going to be giving my full cannabis curriculum in the side room at 6 o'clock. I'm going to have my traveling hemp museum, and I'm going to go into a lot more detail about industrial hemp and the drug war. But I really appreciate your time, and if there's any questions or answers, I'm willing to take those too.